There I am. This is what you miss when you don't come to our open mic, by the way. So, third Thursday from 5 to 6:30. Join us because it's really fun. We're getting some new people coming, and Rod's been with us since almost the very beginning. So, thank you. Good morning. We're finishing our theme, Living a Life That Matters. And, all this month we've been looking at the two aspects that make up our life. We're looking at this world, a material world, which is the world of contrast, of right and wrong, of duality. And then we're looking at that of the spirit, which is our sense of both the oneness and the connection that we have with everything. So it's all one, but there's two aspects of that one. So we come to know that the phrase, we are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, is a very accurate way of describing our life, because it's both of those aspects together. I quoted Dr. Michael Beckwith last week that we are here to bring eternity into time. And to me, this means that we're here to express those intangible aspects of spirit, even as we seek the tangible things that bring joy to the material part of our livingness. And the great mythologist Joseph Campbell captured this never-ending story, this movement of walking in two worlds, and he called it the hero's journey. It's known in every culture and through every epoch, every age, every generation. Some of the elements may be unique to a particular culture, but there is an underlying narrative that transcends space and time. And it is the ultimate transformation that comes from taking the journey itself, rather than the reward that is the source of the original quest. So we've got both of those things happening at the same time. We're questing after something tangible, but we're finding that which is intangible. That is the whole story of the hero's journey. And once we begin to understand those clues, we can see this story. It's everywhere. The fairy tale that we read to a child, the film where the hero finds not only his goal, but is transformed in that process. And we can use the hero's journey as our own roadmap for our own enlightenment. Because I think if we understand and know the elements of the story, there's an intuitive familiarity when we bump up against them in our personal journey. Just about, oh, I know this. It was in Beauty and the Beast. This story comes straight out of The Wizard of Oz, and I'm right here in it. So even though some of those experiences may appear frightening, something within us can say, I'm not alone. There is something happening here that is bigger than what I see. So my topic today, I've chosen, we shall be with all the world. And it's the last sentence of a statement by Joseph Campbell that intrigued me when I first read it years and years ago. And I think it speaks to this ongoing narrative. From a hero with 1,000 faces, Campbell writes, furthermore, we have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path. And where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. Where we thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. Where we had thought to travel outward, we shall come to the center of our own existence. And where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. So ultimately the hero finds that it's not in the slaying of the dragon or the retrieving of the golden fleece or the Holy Grail that's the ultimate reward of the journey. The physical journey reconnects the hero to a fuller sense of self, and that is the real treasure with which he or she returns. It's an authenticity that was not there before that allows that hero to have a life that matters. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, tells us developing confidence in ourselves and our ability to meet and handle all undesirable situations requires that we must have confidence in that something which is greater than we are. Then we will have spiritual self-reliance. When this is done, the lesser must always submit to the greater. Weakness will give way to strength. Despair will turn to hope. Hate will become love. The action that takes place is one that moves in harmony, love, beauty, warmth, and order, quietly transforming all that is unlike it. So our hero returns from his journey, his or her journey, with a spiritual self-reliance, with the ability to walk within these two worlds. And we've covered the elements of the hero's journey before, but I want to touch on them briefly, and then we'll go from there. So the first one, there's three basically. The first one is departure. And the hero can no longer, for some reason, remain in the ordinary world. He or she may be prompted by a divine discontent. You know, I was prompted by a divine discontent that led me to California, to Florida, and now here. But something said, I don't want to be in the Midwest anymore. Divine discontent, and the day came when the risk to remain tied in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. You know, so that's divine discontent. Or there perhaps is a major upheaval, as when Luke Skywalker returns home to find that the relatives with which he lived had been killed and this farm destroyed. Or there could be some kind of a distraction that begins the journey, like the rabbit that Alice follows. You know, it is this prompt that then calls the hero to adventure. Saying yes to that adventure means that you're going to cross that first threshold. You're going to leave the ordinary world behind, and then the hero stands at the beginning of a new adventure in an unfamiliar land. As Dorothy says to Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. The second part of this then is initiation, and it's here that the hero meets with new allies and new enemies, and there are trials and tests that may be taken. Sometimes it takes the hero into a very scary place. There's usually a swamp or a dark woods or the ocean, something going through something very dark and scary. And generally there's a series of ordeals, but generally there's one supreme ordeal that must be overcome in order to win the ultimate boon. You know, like Dorothy must retrieve the broomstick of the wicked witch before the wizard will grant her wishes. The third one is the return. The hero returns home successfully, either with the boon that had been sought or with a greater personal insight. But in addition to the outward success, the hero does not return as the same person who left the ordinary world. So that ultimate gift is one's own transformation. The hero has become the master of those two worlds, can walk in both, knowing that the spiritual world is the essence of the material. So today I want to take the quote that I first read by Joseph Campbell and break it down so that we can see where we have taken or even are taking our own hero's journey, and perhaps find that what we thought was happening was very different than what actually is happening. So the first statement, Joseph Campbell says, where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. The definition of abomination is something or someone we detest or hate. And one definition of God is an adored, admired, or influential person. The transformed hero does not judge by appearances, but looks beyond the others into the heart. You know, in Beauty and the Beast, when Belle drops her disgust of the beast, she is able to see beyond a vile creature and into the love that is the truth of his being. So it's her transformation that allows that love to break the spell that had been placed on the prince. And I think that most of us have probably, if we think about it, I mean, it sounds like a very strange statement, but if we think about it, we've been there, done that. When I was in Los Angeles, my very first job was working for an architectural firm. One of the architects was not very nice to me, and I didn't like him very much. It was mutual. So that was my abomination, somebody that I really detested. But one day I saw him alone in the drafting room, and he was crying loudly. um, so I went to him and I asked him what was wrong. And he told me that his oldest son, who had just turned 13, had been diagnosed with leukemia, and the prognosis was not good. At that moment, my compassion dispelled all my past dislikes of him, and that was met with something very similar in him. So in the course of his son's illness and ultimate transition, we would often have lunch together, and sometimes he would break down, sharing his vulnerability with me so that he could be strong for his family. What a gift. What a gift he gave me. But we gave each other the gift of an open heart, and what had been my abomination, my worst nightmare, became one of my dearest friends. And I think that we all have that kind of beauty and beast story in our repertoire of experiences if we stop and think about it. But I bet most of us have never equated that with the hero's journey, with an element of the hero's journey. The second sentence, Joseph Campbell says, "Where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves." And perhaps the best example to explain this statement can be found in the original Star Wars movie, where Luke Skywalker, under the tutelage of Yoda, must enter the dark cave. That's the assignment he has been given. Yoda says, "That place is strong with the dark side of the Force. A domain of evil it is. In it you must go." And Luke asks, "What's in there?" And Yoda answers, "Only what you take with you." Yeah. So the evil that is in the cave is really the shadow side of Luke. When we seek to slay something outside of ourselves, it is the inner turmoil that we are actually slaying. It's our own shadow side that, when confronted and defeated, becomes the point of opening to that which is our true self. And anyone who has ever overcome depression or an addiction or has gone through any kind of a dark night of the soul has slain a dragon of his or her own shadow side. Third quote from Campbell, "Where we had thought to travel outward, we will come to the center of our own existence." You know, it's easier to see that when you're older, that everything that we did to be successful, to get ahead, to make a name for ourselves, have all been prelude to the journey that we are now on, this journey of inner spiritual enlightenment. You and I are dead on with the words of Joseph Campbell. Those outer rewards and accomplishments have led us back to the center of our own existence. And we find that to live a life that matters, we have to know both of those worlds in which we walk. And the final statement of Joseph Campbell is, "And where we had thought to be alone, we will be with all the world." Generally, our spiritual quest is very personal. It's all about us. I mean, I got into this so that I could be more peaceful, so that I could have the inner joy that I was missing, so that I could experience love and being loved. I wanted to seek the truth that brings fulfillment. So all those things, I think, we get into spiritual studies because of. But the truth is, we can't find all of this and not share it. We bring our own transformation to the world every day. You know, in the television series The Power of Myth, Bill Moyer says to Joseph Campbell, "Unlike heroes such as Prometheus or Jesus, we're not going on our journey to save the world, but to save ourselves." And Campbell replies, "But in doing that, you save the world. The influence of a vital person vitalizes, there's no doubt about it." Laura Ahumada is a beautiful young woman who works with the youth of Amato. She's an incredible lady. John has adopted her. So she's beautiful. And in her classes, she's been emphasizing to the kids the importance of compassion and kindness when interacting with others. And this was triggered when she observed a gay student being teased by some of the older boys. So she had a frank discussion with everyone. And as the young man was able to talk more openly about his feelings, the other kids began to understand and to accept him as one of them. So Laura Lynn gave them the assignment of a pictorial scavenger hunt. They were to take pictures that were representative of the items that she had on the list. And one of those items was a rainbow. So as the kids got together and talked about where they were going to find those pictures, they noticed their varied skin color from dark brown to white. And so they put their arms together, one next to the other, and took a picture of their rainbow arms. Laura Lynn said, "They got it. They got it." And that's all she needed to say. While kindness and compassion may be taught as characteristics that become part of our individual makeup, we can't help but share them because our transformation automatically transforms everything around us. That's the way it works. And the picture the kids took of their rainbow arms says it perfectly. And where we had thought to be alone, we will be with all the world. When you and I can see the hero's journey that is found in every culture, then we see it everywhere. When we see it everywhere, we can incorporate it into our life. You know, think of every good film that you've ever seen. Well, it will involve a physical resolution. If it's a really good movie, the hero is going to be transformed in some way, shape, or form spiritually. You know, George Bailey felt that the bank he had to run was an albatross that kept him from realizing his dreams. And when he finally comes back after his wish of never being born is bestowed by the angel Clarence, he is not the same man who left. Surrounded by friends and family, George's younger brother shares a toast to my brother George, the richest man in town. By assisting her friends, the scarecrow to find wisdom, the tin man to find love, the lion to find courage, Dorothy returns with all of those qualities incorporated in herself. That's what the journey was about. And while she may continue to live with Uncle Henry and Auntie Em, like George Bailey, her home will never be the same because now she walks in those two worlds. Joseph Campbell says that we don't have to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. For me, finding the elements of the hero's journey has helped me to see my own. I look back and I realize that what I thought was something terrible turned out to be exactly what I needed for my heart to be opened. And now, while hopefully most of the time, as I know this, when I do encounter something that's similar, I know what to look for. I can take that hero's journey and find myself on the path so that I can help that abomination to become a god, and I can assist in the transformation of that process. I can see that those times that I stepped out of my comfort zone to take a stand for myself or someone else, that it was my inner strength, my authentic self, that came forth out of that encounter. So while I slayed the dragon of an outward experience, I also slayed my own repressed fears and doubts, the dragons of my inner psyche. So I can see that every encounter has ultimately brought me back to my spiritual quest, coming to the center of my own existence and finding there a source for the peace that I was looking for out there. And finally, what I thought was my personal spiritual unfoldment is where I am with all the world. And you and I together take that shared experience to the streets, not because we have a mandate to do so, but because a personal transformation automatically expresses outward. So we can use the elements of the hero's journey to understand our own, and while we may have ordeals to encounter, we will be able to face them with that spiritual confidence of knowing that we do walk in two worlds. And I'd like to end as we began with Joseph Campbell's entire quotation and see if it makes more sense now than when we first started. Furthermore, we may have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path. And where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. Where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. Where we had thought to travel outward, we shall come to the center of our own existence. Where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. Thank you. Namaste.